Hey, y'all. Welcome back to the podcast. This is a solo episode today. So if you are wanting to watch this episode, we are over on YouTube at Decide It's Your Turn. It is me again, talking to my computer screen, trying to get used to this. I know people do it all the time, but I'm still so weirded out by looking at myself for the next 45 minutes to an hour. But this is what I'm going to do. Our team is going to repurpose content from it. Speaking of this podcast, I honestly don't even know what this is going to be named. I don't even know really what I'm talking about. I have notes because I kind of know what I'm talking about. I really always, you guys know, I've always said that I do these podcasts for you. And I was actually supposed to record this podcast yesterday. And it's not that I didn't do it, but I also didn't do it because I wasn't in the right mind frame to do it, because I really wanted to get clear on how this is going to serve you. I feel like lately I've just had so many questions and I've had so many client calls. This week hasn't been, I'm recording this on a Wednesday. This week hasn't been super crazy. My crazy days of the week with coaching clients are Mondays and Thursdays. So yesterday I kind of had pretty much a chill day, did some content in the morning, had a couple calls, but nothing like my normal days of Mondays and Thursdays, which it's now been Thursdays. It used to be Fridays. Mondays has always been really busy. But I'm usually doing, anywhere from 6 to 8 hours worth of coaching calls. But yesterday was kind of a chill day and I was going to record this. But then I also, again, like I said, I really wanted to be super clear on why I was recording this. And I've had so many client calls last week and I've had so many questions from you guys in the DMs lately. I don't know what it is, which is super weird. I usually get a lot of comments and things like that in the DMs, but not specific questions. So obviously I try to make these podcasts for you guys. So today's podcast, I feel so bad for my team to try to SEO name this. So for those of you who don't know, most of you probably do know, SEO is called search engine optimization. And it's how Google basically ranks things on ranks things on the internet. And we have keywords that we use, such as confidence and how to make a decision and all of the words that people would search if they're searching confidence, if they're searching podcasts, success coach, mindset coach, changing your thoughts, blah, 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 business scaling, whatever. But I don't know what today's is going to be named because it is going to be a mishmash of so many things. But I thought what would be really helpful for you, and I've actually heard a girl do this on her podcast, is where she kind of lays out what a week looks like with her clients. And I think I know, based upon my clients and how I feel with my coach, is I'm always curious to know what everyone else is kind of dealing with, struggling with, working on, so on and so forth. So I thought today's podcast would kind of be a mishmash of telling you what exactly all of my clients are kind of working on and going through. Obviously, a lot of my clients, I never even talk. There's a few clients that I never, ever, ever talk about. And then there's a few people that, are totally comfortable with me saying their names and promoting them and talking about them and all the things. So, for those of you who don't know, and I want you to know that today's podcast really, before you kind of shut it off and say, oh, this isn't for me, I think everyone is going to be able to take something from this podcast. So if you're a new listener, obviously I'm super excited that you're here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. This is honestly we do not monetize this podcast at all. We've been doing this for over 2 years, 2.5 years, which is crazy to even think and say, but we've been doing it a very long time. We do not monetize it. I do it specifically to try to add value to you guys. So today's podcast, it won't only be business. It won't only be mindset. I know everyone is going to be able to take something out of this. So for those of you who don't know, people always think that I only work with business owners, and that is 100% not the truth. I know that there's the term life coach around there. For some reason, I'm not a huge fan of that term, but there is certain people that would probably say that I'm somewhat of a life coach. I more consider myself a mindset coach or success coach, someone who's going to help you step into your God-given purpose and have the confidence and the clarity to do it. Because I really do think that stepping into your purpose is so possible once you have clarity and once you have the confidence to actually do it. But all that to be said, a lot of my clients are very much in their purpose, very much clear on what they want to do in this world. And I help them come up with the path or the strategy in order to help them grow and scale that. And like I've always said, no matter if you're with me for business or personal, it's always mindset and strategy. Don't let anyone tell you it's only strategy or only mindset, because that is not the truth. And I know I've said this on this podcast 100 times, but I'll say it 100 times again. Having a clear strategy is extremely helpful. Having your mindset or having someone help you get back to the most ideal mindset is possible. You guys, I think over the years, you've probably, again, if this is your first day, hopefully you'll learn that I do have a pretty solid mindset. I am definitely a confident person, but I will always have mindset struggles. That's the reason why I have a therapist. That's the reason why I've had a coach over the years. This is why it's so important to have this unlocked, because I really want to make sure I am living my life to the fullest. I am living in my purpose. And there is some days that it just feels super hard. And that's when you rely on someone externally from yourself. So mindset coach, strategy coach, mental coach, whatever you want to. And if you want to say life coach, go right ahead, whatever feels best and most in alignment to you. But today's podcast, I really want to kind of go through what a lot of my clients are working on and a couple of questions in the DMs. And obviously, you guys know, if you've been here a while, you know that I will definitely use personal stories all the time, because I want you to know that, I am still on this journey. I may be in the coach position, but I'm always working on myself. I'm always walking the walk and talking the talk, because I think that that's important. I never want to tell someone ever. I would never, ever in my wildest dreams tell someone to do something that I'm not willing to do myself or I haven't done myself. So let's kind of just dive straight into it. So I'm going to use kind of examples of what clients have been going through. I'm going to use last week. Obviously, we're in the middle of this week, and this week has been, a slower week. Last week, I was super slammed. For those of you who don't know, I do two types of coaching. Well, I do one type of coaching: mindset and strategy, confidence, clarity. That's what I do, but we do it in two different capacities. So one is my full-time clients. They get 3 calls with me, unlimited 24/7 access to me. And then I also have my membership coaching, which is 1 call a month, no access in between, 1 call a month, action items, taking notes, things where they know what the call was about. I take notes and then I give them action items, and then they book a call next month. So 1 call a month or 3 calls a month with unlimited access. So all of that to be said, that's the clients that I have. So if my full-time clients are only getting 3 calls a month, there's some weeks, which happens to be this week, where I'm going to try to knock out as many podcasts as I can, solo podcasts, that is a little bit slower, which is really nice, because I'll be honest, holding, 30 something clients is a lot. And so some weeks where I get 2 days where I only have 1 or 2 calls, and then I can record 2 or 3 podcasts and then go play golf in the afternoon is phenomenal. So all of that to be said, over the last 2 weeks, let's say, these are some of the things that I've been talking through with my clients. And I think this will be really helpful for you, not only so you can feel like, oh my gosh, I'm not the only one, but it'll also help you figure out, is having a coach, whether it be me or anyone else. Obviously, I do believe I'm the best at this, but is having a coach for me? Because that is a question I get a lot. Recently I signed on a client who has been literally following me for almost 5 years now. And she reached out a couple weeks ago and said, I don't have a business, but I really am thinking I need you as my coach. Can we jump on a call to figure out what that would look like? First of all, the bravery that took is huge. Second of all, listening to her higher self. And if I were to dive in it with her, and I haven't yet, I'm wondering how many years or months she's been thinking she needs to do that. But I did tell her on our discovery call together, I did say, I'm so proud of you for listening to yourself. And obviously I'm excited and honored that I get to work with her. But at the same time too, it was really helpful for her to reach out and ask me that question, because clearly I haven't been doing my job well enough to articulate exactly what I do and how I help people, and that it's not only for business. I do believe from the bottom of my core, when you have clarity and you have confidence, money is definitely not even an issue anymore because you always know that you can trust yourself to show up to make it. And the stories behind money. I mean, I did a podcast actually recently. I don't know if it'll come out before this one does or not, but I did a podcast with a woman who basically talks about the relationship to money. And obviously, these are things that I talk about with my clients. So today, like I said, I'm going to go through so many of the situations that I've been talking about with my clients that perhaps could resonate with you. And then also maybe give you that aha moment that, oh, that is why a coach would be really, really helpful. So let's just start. Like I literally have a list. If you guys could see this on YouTube, I probably have a list of 25 things that I've talked about with my clients over the last week. But let's start with like talking about what it actually takes. So I was on a call with a client I don't know what time we meet. We meet on Fridays. So last Friday, I was on a call with this client and we were talking about the fact that like most people don't know what it truly takes to run, grow, scale, monetize a business. And doesn't matter what size of the business it is, most people do not realize what it actually takes to do that. You know, oftentimes I get a question. Let me jump into this question. So I did a live this past week, and one of my clients, my subscription clients, so she gets one call a month with me, she asked me, how long did it take you to start monetizing your business until you were really starting to make money in the business? And I was very open and transparent that it took me roughly 2 to 2.5 years before I really started making more money than I was spending in the business. And this client I was talking to last week, you know, definitely has grown tremendously. But I think it's so easy. And now this isn't even just an online business. This is just in general, right? We do not know what it takes behind the scenes to actually have the success that a lot of people do. I think it's so easy for everyone to just see bits and pieces and go, oh, that was so easy, or an overnight success. You know, I've had a ton of clients in the music business over the years, and it's so crazy because people are like, oh, they're just like this overnight success, or they just blew up. And you don't know how long it took. Like some people overnight success it in 20 years. I don't know if you guys have watched. This is fucking one of the greatest shows ever. My mom actually suggested me watching it. So if you're over the age of 30, I think you'll love this. If you haven't heard of it, I was a bit under a rock until like, I think 3 months ago, I've heard of her. Her name is Leanne Morgan Comedy on social media. Oh my God, she is life. She is so good. She's unlike me. She does not say one cuss word, but I actually heard her on the Bethany Frankel podcast too, but she has a Netflix special, the Leanne Morgan Comedy special or whatever. I want to go see her in person. She's freaking so funny, but she talked about how she blew up, I think or it was either in 2020 or 2022. So like basically like a year and a half ago. And she talked about that she had been doing comedy for the last 20 something years. And it literally took her 20 something years to be the overnight success. So I think that we in general do not see what it actually takes to run a successful business. And I was telling this client that, you know, all of the things that he's doing behind the scenes that no one witnesses on a daily basis is the reason why he has had, and he knows this, but is the reason why he has had so much success over the last 2 years in scaling his business to multi six figures in just 2 years. It's because he's putting in the reps behind the scenes. It's because he's doing what most people aren't willing to do behind the scenes. It has taken so much strategy and so much mindset work for him to get to this point that he is at. And I just want to like bear witness to everyone who thinks that it doesn't take a lot to have that success. Yes, there is people on the internet. I was even saying this on my live last week or this week that there's a woman that I'm watching. She's in real estate. She's got like a couple 100,000 followers. I don't even know why I really watch her. I think I just kind of resonate like with her message, the way that she shows up. But one thing that I would love to have a like behind the scenes conversation with her is how she says that she has gone from like literally nothing to multi six figure months in just 4 months. Like that to me is a bit of clickbait marketing, Or perhaps she's totally telling the truth and she is the 0.0001%. Because yes, it's possible that it can happen. Like one touch of God's favor can change everything. So you guys now know that I'm doing these podcasts on video. So now I always feel bad stopping to take a sip of water, but I talk so fucking much that you guys on video who are just watching me, you're obviously just going to have to watch me drink water. Hopefully my podcast guys, Kev, take the water sipping out after this. But and this is the reason why I can't drink water, because I totally lose track on telling you guys, I'm sorry, the YouTube video people are having to see me drink water. But what I was going to say was I would love to have a backseat view of this woman's actual career to see if she really did go from, being consistent for 4 months, having a very hot audience, and then making multi six figures per month. And like I was saying, one touch of God's favor can change everything in an instant. And it might happen in 20 years, like Leanne Morgan, or it might happen like your first year or your first month. I mean, you never really know when that lightning is going to strike. And it's obviously happening for a reason. I don't know about you guys, but I know a lot of people deal with jealousy. A lot of people deal with like envy and things like that. I can firmly say, even though I have been a dumpster fire for multiple years of my life before really diving into mindset work, I never really was jealous. Like jealousy to me feels so icky in regards to the fact that I feel like it's wishing bad things on someone else in like, oh, I'm so jealous of that. I'm so jealous of that. No, I'm not jealous that they have that. Like really, I've always been able to see that is proof. And I think that is definitely one of my strengths. It's one of my superpowers for sure, because I don't look at it as jealousy. I look at it as, okay, like if that's possible for them, what is possible for me? And, obviously I do have a lot of mindset fucks for sure, but that's really not one of them. So I do look at that as what is possible for sure. But I would like to know behind the scenes of like, how did that actually happen for that woman? Because I do know that like a vast majority of people, that is going to be a very hard thing to do, to get from zero. Let's say she was at zero to multi six-figure months. And I just find that like really upsetting, because there's a lot of people who will do this and start this, whatever career they're doing, whatever they're trying to monetize, they will try to do it. And it'll take months, years, all of the things behind the scenes. And so I don't really know what that business looks like for her. Obviously, it's just a random person that I follow, and totally possible. But also, I think the vast majority of people are really going to see that starting something from scratch is going to take time, effort, energy. And just like my client and I were talking about last week, it's the behind the scenes of what it actually takes to be successful that I think most people really should be sharing and should be leaning on, so you don't feel like you're doing it wrong when it isn't monetizing as fast as you want, or it isn't growing as fast as you want. And so when this client asked me on the live, how long did it really take me? I really remember, I think it was 2018, the first year, I think I made about $18,000. And of course, my fucking lawn people are here because, I'm recording a podcast. So why wouldn't they show up? So I apologize if you can hear the lawn people in the background, but all of that to be said, I remember the first year, I think I made about $18,000. And if you really think about it, like if you really think about $18,000, that's fucking amazing. Like, it's so unbelievably cool that I said I was going to set out to help people. And I didn't even really know that confidence was the thing until I did an intensive session with one of my mentors. And I was working on myself much before that, you guys. Like, so I really started diving into like changing myself, changing my thoughts, stepping into my most confident version, knowing that like I was out of alignment of my life, and then really trying to step into like what would make me feel aligned. What do I feel like I am called here to do? And that is obviously the work that I'm doing now, helping people step into their confidence and their clarity so they can too live into their God-given purpose and do it through scaling and mindset work and all the things. But for me, it was like that first year that I just really put the offer out, because for years, like probably 5 to 7 years before that, I was paying people tens of thousands of dollars to get me where I was. And as I was changing, people were coming to me and saying like, how are you so confident? How have you done this? Like, what are you doing? And that was even my golf career too. Like, people wanted to know how I was able to charge so much, how I was able to market myself in my golf field as well. And so for me, the fact that I started to charge money, and in that first year, I made like, I'm pretty sure it was around it was either $13,000 or $18,000. Either way, you guys, how fucking cool is that? It was either like $1,000 or $1,500 a month that I was able to, on average, make throughout my first year of doing something. There is people who like barely make $18,000 a year, like in their occupation. Like, I just felt like at the time, I know my mindset was probably not as strong as it is today, but I also can look back at that and be like, holy moly, how cool is that I was getting paid to help someone else? Like, I'm blown away by it still. Like, even now where I'm doing, 5 times that, whatever, way more than 5 times 18,000, but all of that to be said, I still am blown away by the fact that people pay me. And I do think from day one till, 6 years later, I still to have like almost over 1,000 days. Wow, crazy. I have that's like 2,000, isn't it? Fuck. See, Nathan always tells me I shouldn't do math on these podcasts, like really bad. How do I help people grow and scale their business? Because I have a fucking calculator beside me all the time. It's not my strength. But all of that to be said, I still look at it as such a blessing. I still look at it as like, oh my God, how lucky am I that I get paid to do something I love. Not everyone gets to do that. Like, I just feel like it's such a gift. And I think for me, that's one of the biggest mindset tips I can give anyone is just like, really remember, like, get so granular about like, wow, how freaking amazing is this? Like, how amazing is it that I live in America and this is a possibility for me, and it is possible and it is real and it's just such a gift. And so on the days for you that are hard, I would encourage you to come back to like, are you getting paid to do something that helps another human and you love getting to do, whether you're making $1 at it or $1 million at it? Like, it's such a like mindset shift to come back and get into gratitude. And from that energy is usually where I get so many more clients. So that's definitely a shift there. But, I think talking about with this client last week, talking about what it actually takes in business, I think is really, really helpful. You guys know, like, and if you haven't been here that long, you will know that I work harder than most people. And I know that there's this like beautiful balance of ease and effort, like I am not in this because it is like, I'm not working until like my hands are bleeding and I'm angry doing it and I'm doing it to try to prove something. I'm doing it because I take real responsibility in the work that I do. And I also know that like, it's my job to show up. People are paying me money to serve them. And I'm going to do my absolute 150% best in order to show up to that at all times. And so I think that that's really important for you to know that it does take work and it does take energy and it does take effort and it does take investing money. Like I was telling this client, yes, I made $18,000 the first year, but I guarantee you I spent more than double that. Easy, hands down. I haven't tracked it, but I can firmly tell you I was spending double that in myself. I was doing anything and everything I could to make it a reality. I was willing to do whatever it took in order to make it a success. And I think that coupled with that, my unwavering belief that it was going to work was the reason why I was able to invest that money off the get-go. I see so many people. I've worked with over 200 people one-on-one, and I will tell you, I see so many people who are afraid to do it because they're not all in. and I can usually see it right off the bat. I have clients along the line, whether they were in my mastermind group or my one-on-one, where you knew that, and my job was not to tell them whether it was going to work or not. My job was to help them get clear and confident. But it was almost like that they believed stronger in all of the reasons why it wasn't going to work than the unwavering belief that like, I'm all in. I have a couple clients right now, one of my long time clients. I've even said to her a few times, because I know her well enough to go, okay, well then just don't do it then. Just, go do something else. And like in that instant, she's just like me. She's like, I'm never quitting. What are you talking about? I was like, exactly. Okay. Then let's come back to, okay, how can we make this work? Because if this is going to work, no matter what, this is why I believe, and I always say it, but like, and I'm kind of saying it like braggy a little bit, but Decided to Return is like the greatest brand ever, and I'm so thankful for this trademark, because it's like, once you decide, like a decision, like once the decision is made, it's so easy to show up to that decision. It's like, the minute you're wavering on the decision is when things get hard, but it's so much easier to show up to a decision when you're like, the decision is made, line is drawn, burn the bridges, we're all in. Okay, cool. Now we just figure out a way, right? So again, that was a very long-winded thing about talking to my client last week about it, what it actually takes, but it takes a lot. It takes time, it takes money, it takes energy, it takes effort, it takes mindset, it takes strategy, it takes things that most people aren't willing to do. Like, not everyone wants to own their own business. Dear God, not everyone should own their own business. Please don't, because it is a lot more than just throwing up a few posts and making some money. Like, even when I tell you guys, like last year we brought in like, and I've said on this podcast, this year my numbers will go down because I'm exclusively one-on-one coaching, and I'm so comfortable with it. I'm so good with it. Like, it makes me so happy that I still get to bring in, $300,000 worth of revenue instead of $400,000 worth of revenue or whatever it is. But like, I'm not keeping all of that money. It takes money to run a business and grow and scale and pay team and pay taxes and all of the things. But this business allows me to have the life, and I'm so clear on the life. And I think that that's really, really helpful. So again, last week, one of the conversations we were having with clients was talking about what it actually takes, the behind the scenes of what it actually takes, the investment, the time, the energy, the effort, the mindset, the strategy, all of it. Another thing that we were talking about was team leadership last week. One of my clients, I'm so unbelievably proud of her. We've worked together about 2.5 years. She is a client that is so heavily into her faith. Like, she inspires me all the time. And it's weird, I don't talk about her that much, and yet she's probably one of my clients who I just respect so much because of her unwavering mindset and her belief in herself. But she has multiple team members, like over the years, she hired me because she was burnt out. A lot of people come to me that are very successful in their business, and they're tired of being burnt out. They're tired of feeling like they're never enough. They're tired of feeling like a bit like, burn it all down, let's start again, because this isn't worth it. And I know when they started it, they were so passionate about it. And I think one of the reasons why people resonate with me quite a bit is like, I do not care how much money you're making. If you are miserable, it is not okay. I used to have a couple private guy clients who were making multiple 7 figures. And I had these clients because back in my golf days where I was working with executives, and a lot of guys resonated with me because I do have a strong mindset, and I actually am happy in my life. And I think were kind of the way I was at 27, 28 years old, where I had everything on the outside, and inside I was dying. And I think dying on the inside, I was, miserable. I shouldn't say dying, but on the inside, I was miserable because I had all the stuff, but I was miserable. And I think a lot of my early clients who, I did some clients on retainer in the beginning, and a lot of guy clients in the beginning that were doing extremely well, like very successful, multiple 7 figures in their businesses, but they hired me because they were miserable. They knew that, wait a minute, I'm making 5 million. What's 2 million more, right? But they always thought that that's what was going to make them happy. And I think for me, I love getting to work with people who want it to be more easy, who want it to be more joyful, who want it to be more streamlined. And a lot of that takes scaling, and a lot of that takes team. And my client and I, who I just adore, she was talking about team leadership, how that's a really hard thing. If you've never managed people before and all of a sudden you like, have you guys ever seen that meme that's going around right now? It's this girl who's like, oh my God, I accidentally girl bossed and now I'm people's bosses and people are calling me and emailing me. It's fucking hilarious. If you haven't seen it, I think I posted it months and months ago, but it's true. Like so many people accidentally start this business that fucking takes off. And then they're like, whoa, I have never had to do this before. And this client that had hired me a couple of years back, and she's so in her face, she trusts herself 110%, but she has now like 8 employees, and leading a team is difficult. And I have another client who has multiple employees. I don't even know how many because a lot of them are part-time and so on and so forth. But leading a team is very difficult. And if you've never done it before, it almost feels like, oh, fuck, I don't even know how to do this. And we talk about this a lot on our calls. We talk about like, how do you pour into your team leadership? How do you set roles in your team? How do you like scale team? How do you do these things? And what, there's a great book out there for business called, especially for entrepreneurs, it's called Traction. And my husband has been using Traction formula and a Traction integrator for, oh gosh, probably the last 3 years. And it's just made a world of a difference in his business. And, he's got a $50 million construction business, and they're just now integrating all of these things within the last 3 years. And this company has been around since his dad started it in the 70s, right? So, or in the 80s, I think it was. But anyway, all of that to be said, it takes a lot in order to do this. And you've got to figure out what works for you as a leader. And you've got to figure out what works for you in leading team. And, who do you want to be? What culture do you want to create in your business? What, systems do you have to put in? And so this is a thing that we talk a lot about with my clients, because it's not always about them. It's about, leading their team. And it's a process, having hard conversations. If you are someone who is a boss and you are not good at having hard conversations, this is something you're going to have to get good at, because as much as you may not like it, you're going to have to do it. So this is something that we talk about on calls all the time. So another call that we had last week was podcast growth. One of my clients has a podcast. Multiple of my clients have podcasts, but we were talking about podcast growth. So what is a strategy in order to grow your podcast? So there's multiple different strategies, but for her, we were really talking about like what would feel good to her in order to grow her podcast. What kind of money does she want to put behind it? Does she want to put ads behind it? Does she want to monetize the podcast? Is it just for her business? So this was something that we were talking about last week. And I think, for me and this podcast, like I do not monetize this podcast. Obviously, we put in our clip in the show where I talk about getting on a discovery call with me, because I know what it takes in my business in order to have a successful year and to be able to serve the people at the capacity that I can serve at the highest level. So for me, I don't really look to monetize this right now, but I also know, you guys, I've been looking into it this year for us to just say, like, what would it take for us to start monetizing this podcast? And, we have roughly 100,000 downloads, which sounds like a lot, but it's fucking nothing, to be honest with you, when you're looking to monetize a podcast. I think you need like 3,000 downloads. I think it's something like 3,000 downloads. I should have had the math, but I didn't know I was going to talk about this. But I think it's something like 3,000 downloads a week. And it's like, it's not that much money. It really isn't. Like, you're talking millions of downloads in order to really monetize with big names such as, you guys have probably heard, like BetterHelp. They're on every podcast right now. And there's just a ton of sponsorship opportunities that you can get for podcasts, but you really have to know your audience. You have to know like what your audience is going to buy. And then you really have to think about, downloads, weekly and monthly downloads. And we only put out one podcast a month. Right now, I have a podcast team that produces 4 podcasts per month for me to, and it cost me roughly about $500 a month to put out this podcast. So I have the podcast team, I have SEO, and I have my assistant. So and now someone to do our YouTube channel. So gosh, it probably cost me more than $500 a month. I should know that. I know my numbers pretty well, but I forgot about that last one. But let's just say on average, $550 a month for me to produce this podcast. So I have to be able to look at my numbers and go, okay, let's just say 500 because I'm bad at math. So $6,000 over the course of the year. Let's just say it cost me $6,000 over the course of the year. I know that I really have to get in at least, one membership client for our podcast to make this like a break even. I have to bring in, one full-time client would definitely put us overpaying for this, but I have to know my numbers. And this is something that I talk about with clients all the time. You've got to know your fucking numbers in business. If you do not know your numbers, you are shooting yourself in your foot. I will tell you, one of my good clients, one of the things that women in particular have been known to be afraid of looking at their finances. And to me, looking at your finances puts you in so much more like power than not. A lot of women don't know where the money is, whether you have your own business or you're a stay-at-home mom, whatever it is. A lot of women do not know their money. They do not know their expenses. They do not know how much money is coming into the home. They don't know how much money is coming into the business, where they're spending it. And this is important stuff, especially if you want to have a sustainable business for a very long period of time. My coach, Lacey, the thing with her that I really, really like, obviously, like we're very aligned with some things. I've worked with her for years. I'm not working with her in a full capacity anymore. We're just doing, calls, a couple times a year. But one of the things with her is, one of the reasons why I really liked what she had to say was the fact that, like, for her, this is a business that is going to last forever, that she wants to do forever. And I truly do believe, even if I'm 60 years old, I think I can do that. I know I can do this at the capacity that I'm doing it right now, because I know that I can still give the value. I know that I have the expertise to back it up. I know that I am continuously working on myself, continuously educating myself to be able to serve my clients at the highest level. And it's a business that I can sustainably do for a really long time. And also the extra money I make in this business, I can take to invest in something else, So I'm not looking for this to be like this boom of cash flow in one period of time to do something else. I can do this for a very long, sustainable period of time. So in order to do that, I have to know my numbers. And I think it's super smart for you, whether you're a business person or you're just someone who works from the home. Like, you should really know your numbers. You should know where your money is being spent. You should know how to save money, grow money, invest money, hold money. Like, money is so, so important. And I know over the last year, I've been talking about money more and more. And I think it's important. I want to be a woman that is talking about money, because I want you to know that I did not come from money. My husband did not come from money. And now I feel very comfortable with money. I mean, I don't have the stories about money that I used to have by far. And I'm constantly stretching myself. I think the thing with money, looks, whatever it is, there's always going to be people richer. There's always going to be people hotter, but there's always going to be people poorer, and there's always going to be people uglier. At the end of the day, there's always going to be, someone above you and some below you. but it's really getting comfortable about who you are and what you want. And knowing your numbers in business, I think, is very, very helpful. And so that's something that I talk a lot about with clients in regards to finances and knowing your numbers and knowing, all of the things. So I was talking about podcast growth there, but like looking at your podcast, knowing what you want to do. What I was saying was I spend about, let's say, $500 a month on this podcast. I know if I wanted to produce 2 episodes a week or 3 episodes a week instead of once a week, I know that that would cost me, let's say, another $500 minimum a month to do 2 podcasts. Maybe I could get 3 a week in that. Yes, my downloads would go up tremendously, but I would have to know my numbers to know that if I put out, I think right now we get like 1,000 downloads a week. Let's just say that. So if we get 1,000 downloads a week with one podcast, so if I throw out 3 podcasts, who knows, maybe I could get to 4,000 downloads a week. And then what does $4,000 a week cost me versus can I get sponsorship behind that? Like, what are the numbers? And knowing your numbers gives you power. And I think that whether we're talking about podcasts, whether we're talking about clients, whether we're talking about bringing on team, whether we're talking about putting in more systems, whether we're talking about, buying a platform or anything, knowing your numbers puts you in power, because then you know what you can do and what you can't do. And I think that that's, as a business owner, as in particular, that's very smart. As a woman in general, I know a lot of women listen to this podcast. I know I got guys out there too. What's up to my dudes? But in general, women have a harder time with finances. And I talk to a lot of my clients about that want to, become more empowered in their finances. And I think it's just a smart move in general, whether you're in business or not. All right. Another thing that I was talking about with clients this week, especially after my last sales and confidence webinar, was the fact that messaging is so, so important. At the end of the day, one of the reasons why I believe I have, a good stream of clients all the time is because people clearly know what I do, whether some people in the beginning called me life coach or not. You want to call me a life coach? Go ahead. I don't know why I don't like it. Like, what is it about it? Do you guys like that word, life coach? I don't know. Like, and I'm not slamming any life coaches in general. I'm just saying, like, I just don't know if I love it. Cause like, I don't know if it feels like degrade. I don't know what it is. I just feel like it's so much more encompassing than that, but it is what it is. But messaging, I think, is so, so important. So for me, messaging has always been something that's constantly evolving and getting pretty good at. But at the end of the day, I can rattle off pretty clear exactly what I do for you and who I serve and who I help. Like, I should be able to rattle that off in like 1 second without even thinking about it. It should just roll off the tip of my tongue. And for you, it's the exact same thing. But I think with messaging, where some people forget, is that yes, a lot of us are selling something. I'm always selling you. I'm always telling you I am the person to help you get clear and confident and step into your purpose and make a profit and do all the things. But I think the thing about it is you have to be able to articulate that message, but you also have to come off as a bit of a human. And I know that there is I don't know if it's controversy, but there's ways in which you can do this that you can feel so comfortable. I've said on this podcast before, my coach puts in like 0% of her personal life. Like, I think, I work with her personally, so I could ask her any questions I wanted, and I have worked with her for 3.5 years or whatever it be. But, I don't know much about her personally. And with y'all, I'm sure if you are a loyal listener to this podcast, and we've DM'd before, or you and I text message, or we're friends in real life, you know a lot about me. But I think the way in which you do it, that you feel comfortable, I think at the end of the day, the personal connection is so important. Even with my coach. So she goes live every Monday. She has for years in her Facebook group. That is part of her strategy. You guys always, when I always say it's like mindset and strategy, you have to have a firm strategy and you have to work that strategy. Part of Lacey's strategy is that she goes live every single Monday. So she may not show you a ton of her personal life on her social media, but on that Facebook Live, you can see more of her personally. She'll talk in the beginning of that live. I don't watch them all the time, but I've obviously caught a few of them over the years. But she'll talk about, what her kids doing, what she did this weekend, what she's going through, whatever it is. But there's a personal human connection. And I think that is so important because yes, people buy people, but they buy people that can solve their problems. Like I know that people like me. Most people like me. There's some people obviously that can't stand me, which is fine because guess what? There's people I can't stand in this world too. Like I just let that stuff roll off my back because if they're for me, they'll find me. And if you don't like me and I just wish you love because I was that person who I used to be that girl who didn't like other girls, in particular women, because I didn't like myself and I was unhappy with my own life. So now I just wish those people the best. Like I hate it, it sucks. And yes, it hurts me sometimes, but at the end of the day, I know who I am. I know what I stand for. I know like at the end of the day, I put my head on the pillow and I'm fucking good with me. Hence the mindset work, folks. Like literally, even if you never hired me and made one fucking dollar, if you could get to that point, trust me, it's worth every penny because I've spent hundreds of thousands of pennies on those things and it's made my life a million times better. But all of that to be said, messaging is so important. And that was one of the things that we were talking about this week is like really making sure people know exactly what problem you solve, but they also know who you are because people want a human connection. One thing that I have said that I think is a big detriment to the world, and let me know if you guys find this true, especially for those of you who have kids, a huge detriment, I think, now that we have social media and that we are all connected to our phones and addicted to them, because it's true, no matter who you are, most people are addicted to your phone. That has hurt the power of human connection. And at the end of the day, like if you boil it all down, you want to be connected to another human. And if you feel connected to another human, chances are you're probably going to want to buy from them more than the person that you don't feel connected with. You are going to want some sort of connection, especially for a high ticket sale. And, like any product over about, $1,500, $2,000 is a high ticket product. So you are probably going to want a human connection with that person. So that was something that we were talking about in messaging is like letting people know more of who you are. One of my clients, so she and I worked together for a little while. She took some time off and she came back to me and she's now a client of mine, a membership client of mine. She told me, she's like, I always liked your stuff. I thought you were cute. I liked the way you talked. I loved how you said, fucking God. And I know that's really weird to some people, but for some people, it really resonates. I remember when I really started leaning into my faith, when I really started to just say, fuck it, I'm just going to be Christina. Funny. That's my social media handle. If you don't follow me, come say hi. But when I really started just being like, I cuss and God and I are super close, but I also started telling my story about how the fact that like, I literally hated myself. I was like the meanest human on the planet to myself for the first 25 years of my life. I had an awful eating disorder. I was so out of alignment. Like I was miserable. I didn't know if I even wanted to live. That I know it's weird to some of you to even think like, why in the world, how could you possibly share that? But that is what made this client want to resonate with me, like wanted to work with me. She's like, oh my God, you and I are exactly the same. I had those same situations, those same thoughts, those same patterns. It was different, but it was exactly the same. And oh my God, you really like your life. Oh my God, you have really learned how to take those thoughts and change them and work them to your advantage. And you created a business that does hundreds of thousands of dollars a year helping people. Oh my God, I need to work with you. So you guys, that is so important. Yes, your messaging has to tell people how to solve their problem, but you also have to resonate with the person. And, I don't know if all of the gurus will tell you that, but if you really boil it down, human connection is one of the most important things on this planet. I don't really care. I made hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars back in my golf career. You know how I did it? not because I was a great golfer, not because I was the best looking, but because I was the person that could connect on a human level to 95% of the people I met. That is what brought me back year after year after year after year. Girls used to always ask me, how do you get paid so much money to play with these executives? No, I never effed my way to the top. I can't even say it. I can say fuck all the time, but I can't say that for that purpose. I don't know what's wrong with me that I can't say that. I never screwed my way to the top. I never bought my way to the top. I never had this in. I did it through the power of human connection. I did it through the follow-up. I did it because I worked harder than most people. I did it because I had a clear strategy on what problem I could solve for them. And I clearly told them how I could do it. And it's the same thing in this business now. Like, I am resonating with someone who is listening to this podcast today. I know I am because I've been doing it. It's part of my strategy. Like, yes, I am giving so many people so much free value, so much wisdom over the years. But there's one person who's listening to this podcast right now who's going, fuck me. I know I need to work with this chick. How am I going to work with this chick? Because this chick literally fucking sees me. She talks like me. She was me. And now she is where I want to fucking be. And for me, that is part of the strategy, guys. I have shown up so consistently saying the exact same fucking thing over and over and over and over and over. I've just told you different stories. But at the end of the day, I am literally telling you all the exact same thing. And I'm letting you know me a little bit so you can go, oh my God, that is my person. And I want you to know that someone is going to choose me over like Ed Milet or Oprah or whomever. But guess what? Someone is going to choose you over Ed Milet, over Oprah, over me. And you just have to let someone in so they can see that you're their person if this is what you want to do. And this is the exact conversation I was having with this client last week. All right. What other things were we talking about? Oh yeah, something that I think is really, really important is I was talking with actually one of the girls in my mastermind group. So I'm a part of a mastermind with two other women. We've been doing it for over a year and a half. We've never missed a call. Again, do you think the theme of my business and my life is consistency, folks? Pay attention. Most people do not want to hear that because guess what? That takes work, but consistency is everything. But one of the things we were talking about, and I was actually talking about this with a client because I have lived this and I have experienced this with clients. And one of my girls in my mastermind group was the fact about taking time off in your business. How many of you are afraid to take time off? As I drink water, ponder that. How many of you are afraid to take time off? I will be honest with you. In starting my business, I was probably really afraid to take a minute, take a beat, take time off because I always thought I was going to lose to someone else. Like, again, I think this is like a both side of the coin. I'm so consistent and that's definitely a strategy, but I was always afraid to not be there for a minute. I was always afraid to take time off. I was always afraid not to show up. And I think that there's two seasons for this. I remember Chris Harder always said, you earn the ability to say no. And I think that that is very, very true. I think it wasn't Chris Harder. It was Jesse Itzler. Jesse Itzler said in the beginning of his career, he said yes to a 5 a.m. breakfast and yes to a midnight dinner party. It didn't matter. He said yes to everything because he had to earn his ability to say no. I think in the beginning stages of building a business, yes, you have to say yes to a lot of things. You have to be willing to show up. But there is a time where you're able to step away for a minute and nothing is going to stop what God has for you. So that's number one. But number two, you can come back into it. When you have a clear strategy and you have a foundation, it is so much easier to take time out of your business. So for those of you who have been here a while, you probably remember last October, November, I took 3.5 weeks off. I had a strategy on how I was going to quote unquote show up during that time. This podcast, we batched podcasts. My clients were fully supported. We prorated our invoices. Like we took all the necessary steps, and I still was able to be overseas for 3 weeks. So, we were talking about this with a client, and she has had this bucket list family trip for the last, gosh, I don't know. They've been planning it for like 3 years. And with COVID and a family situation, it has been pushed off, pushed off, pushed off. And she's just in the beginning stages of building her business. And I know she was a little bit nervous about taking some time off to really be with her family. But I told her one of my favorite quotes, and I've recently posted it on my social media, is "Be where your feet are." And I think that is a Nick Saban quote. I'm pretty sure, but be where your feet are. You know what? There is going to be time for you to come back and double down on your business, but there is also a time where you have to be where your feet are. And if that means taking 2 weeks or 3 weeks to go be with your family, what's the fucking point of building a business if you can't do that? What's the point of doing anything if you can't take time off to go do the thing that you want to do? You know, I am getting much better, like really disconnecting during multiple times of the week. You know, you guys will see if you follow me on social media and you're really trying to follow like kind of what I do. My strategy in my business is honestly very fucking cookie cutter. I could literally package like a quick, like, here's $100 PDF on exact strategy on how I bring in $300,000 or $400,000 of revenue. But if you fucking watch, it's very simple, folks. Like, it's not that hard. I could definitely package that up and sell it. Most people do. I mean, I was even getting a freaking ad from someone I know on social media that I'm like, oh my God, it's not that fucking hard to witness. But if you need a quick strategy, just let me know. I can share that with you. But if you look close enough, you can definitely see what I do. But all of that to be said, I'm getting much better at just like disconnecting and doing the work that I actually have to do. I am so lucky that now I get to work with my clients. I have created a foundation where I have 30 something clients right now, where I'm on coaching calls most of the day. I'm still showing up. I'm still bringing people into my funnel, but at the end of the day, I'm so lucky because I'm actually getting to do what I want to do. But all of that to be said, this client was leaving for 3 weeks and she was very nervous about taking the time away. And one of my mastermind girlfriends, she was asking me how I was able to take time off last fall to take 3 weeks off so we could go to Dubai and Africa and the Maldives and all that last fall. And one of the things that we were talking about is, number one, the most important thing is making sure that you give yourself plenty of time ahead to, have a firm strategy of how it's going to work while you're gone. But also, like I told my client, and I've been telling her consistently when she's been gone, is be where your feet are. When you get back, we'll figure it out. But at the end of the day, none of us create a business so we can like be fucking miserable in it. You create the business so you can do what you love to do, get paid for it, and have the ability to go do something that you've always wanted to do. You are never, ever, ever, ever going to regret taking the time with your family, taking the time with the people that you love. You're never going to get to the end of your life and be like, fuck, I wish I would have worked a lot more. No one's going to say that. So create the business and create the life that you want, and know that it's okay to step away. And it's so much easier to step away when you have the strategy in place in order to do it. So that was a big thing that we were talking about. One last thing that I think we were talking about with a client this past week or last week was the mindset of starting versus the mindset of scaling. So I will be honest with you, my mindset is very similar now to where it was that when I first started. Like, I was all in, decision was made, willing to do whatever it takes, all of that, so on and so forth. But like the fears and the insecurities and the worries of the beginning of like, is it going to work? Are people resonating? When am I going to make money? Like, none of those things really go away in some regard. Like, I think it just gets easier now. I always tell my clients, like, if we get you from, I know for those of you who are watching on YouTube, my hands are up and I'm making like, a foot apart. And if we get you half a foot apart, then we're making progress, right? But a lot of those fears and worries and insecurities that I had in the beginning, I still fucking have. I just know that like they're not really true. I'm going to show up and do the work. The decision is made. The business is going to stick around. I'm going to do whatever it takes. One touch of God's favor is like changing everything. Like literally, I can look back in my business. One of my favorite clients, I love her so much. She's so good at being able to say like, every single thing has worked for her. And she has so much faith and trust in that. Like she could literally give me like an encyclopedia book of all the things of how exactly they worked out and they shouldn't have actually worked out. Like shout out to Stacy. I love you so much. You're such an inspiration to me. I'm so honored that I've got to be your coach for however many years. But all of that to be said, it's like, when you are able to realize that it's all going to work out for you, I think in the beginning, there's just a lot of fear because you've never done it before, right? But again, if you've made the decision, it's going to work no matter what, then it's going to work no matter what. If you're willing to take the action, you're willing to invest in yourself, you're willing to find the support, you're willing to like overcome the mindset. And the mindset stuff is the stuff that traps so many people. Like most people can do it if they're willing to overcome like what everyone thinks, if they're willing to like put themselves out there, if they're willing to trust themselves, if they're willing to invest in themselves, if they're willing to like, say it in front of their mother-in-law or their brother that doesn't like them, whatever it is. Like if you're willing to do it no matter what, it will work. And if you have the faith, this is the reason why the 3 pillars of everything I teach, I think is so, so important: decision, faith, and action. Those 3 things, in my personal opinion, you can do anything and everything. Like whether or not you're using them or not, I'm sure that probably there has been those 3 things in anything that you've done. Anything. Like I just have so much unwavering faith that people want to work with me and people will find me out of nowhere. It's fucking incredible. Like I could give you guys a couple examples. Like most recently, this is the craziest thing ever. So I was on, for those of you who have listened to the Clinton Anderson podcast, that podcast did extremely well. I think we did like 25 or 30,000 downloads when it first came out. Like it did extremely well. You guys, how that podcast ever even came about is so fucking insane. So like I'm sitting on the back porch at my mother-in-law's house at the lake, where Nathan's cousin's husband was telling me about this horse podcast. And he always shows me these horse podcasts because that's what he does. Like he loves to rodeo. He does all these things. I've never paid attention once in my life. Like I love Dano to death, but like I've never actually looked at the shit that he does because it's totally outside of my interest, right? So I'm listening to him talk. Well, Nathan and I are driving in 2 separate cars that weekend, and I'm driving home by myself and I don't have another podcast that I want to listen to. And Dano says, Christina, just listen to this guy. Listen to him for 5 minutes. He's just like you. He cusses like crazy and he's business minded. He's smart. I'm like, okay, so I'll listen to this. Nathan was like, never going to listen to this fucking podcast. Nathan's like, Dano always recommends this shit. Like, I don't care about horses. Neither do you, blah, blah, blah. So I turn it on. I'm obsessed. Within 5 minutes, I'm like, this guy fucking gets it. Like we're completely different, but like he understands business. He understands mindset, whether or not he's saying it. So I literally, before I get home, I've already emailed them because you guys know me. I'm the type of person is like, I'll email fucking Oprah. I don't really give a shit. Like if I'm going to do something, I will figure out a way to get to yes. Cause again, that's my mindset. But so I email this guy, never hear from him for like 2 weeks. I'll follow up. His assistant emails me back and says, oh, hey, Christina, Clinton lives in Arkansas. I'd love to have you on his new podcast. Could we do a podcast swap? So like, you guys, I'm telling you this because everything happens for me. I've gotten a few clients from that podcast, but I've gotten a ton of downloads, which really helps my downloads because if you know the back end of websites and all the things, we backlink that podcast to my website, blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day, like everything is working for me. So people who did not even know who I was in the horse industry are now listening to this podcast because everything happens for a reason, because I am willing to take action all the time, because I know that who is for me will 100% find me. I have people literally that follow me in countries that I don't even know exist. I had a woman from Qatar. I don't even know how you're spell. I say it Qatar, but that's wrong. I think it's Qatar. But anyway, by the way, shout out to that airline. Fucking phenomenal. I flew from Qatar to the Maldives. Unbelievable. Q Suite. Holy shit, you guys. Crazy town. Crazy, crazy, crazy. So blessed. But all of that to be said, like I've had a client from a country that I didn't even know fucking existed. So how in the world can I not think everything is happening for me and everything is happening like as it should? With the unwavering mindset, the decision that you're all in no matter what, and knowing that like if you're willing to take the action, it's going to fucking work out for you. It's that mindset makes everything work. Everything. Whether you're in, whether you're out, like just make the fucking decision. Decision, faith, and action. I know this podcast has been all over the place, but I hope and pray that like my hour, I guess we've been talking an hour now, my hour of rambling has resonated with you in some regard, that you might now know a little bit behind the scenes of what my clients and I talk about. It's always mindset and strategy. It's always personal and professional. Whether you work for yourself, whether you work for someone else, whether you're a stay-at-home mom. Over the years, I've had so many stay-at-home moms. Why? Because they know that they want something more, because they want to be better for their kids. I did a post the other day that a lot of my clients have resonated with, which is if you don't repair it, you're going to repeat it. And over the years, there's been a ton of parents that have resonated with me, whether it be in their parenting or whether it be in their marriage. You know, I'm very thankful that I've always said, knock on wood, my marriage is my most important thing. It's the number one thing of my life. My faith is number one. My marriage is number two. My business is probably number three. And whether that's right, wrong, or indifferent, it just is what it is. But there's been so many people that have worked with me over the years because they want a better marriage. They want to be a better parent. They want to have more ease and joy in their business. They want to figure out the messaging. They want to figure out the scaling. They want to not feel so alone. That is a common theme on my calls each week, is that people feel alone in life and business. And I never want anyone to feel alone. But there also is a season where we've all felt alone. I have felt so alone numerous times, but I'm so thankful that I have a coach and team and surrounding myself, because there's seasons where you're growing and you are outgrowing the people that you are around, and you are growing into the next level and the next vision of yourself, and you haven't yet found those people. So I hope you guys, that gives you a little bit of a background on, and I mean, I never even went through all the other things. I mean, I talked about community. I talked about direct messaging. I talked about branding. I talked about what coaching, really what the big vision is. You know, we've talked about, there was just so many, personal relationships. You know, sometimes my clients get on calls with me, even my business clients, where we spend 35 of the 45-minute call talking about personal stuff. Because I'll tell you what, even for myself, there has been some of the best calls I've ever had with Lacey were the calls that I was just like, I can't talk about business because this dumpster fire is happening in my personal life. And I know some people might think, why in the world would you pay a coach for that? To me, why in the world would you not? Because I know I can't show up in my business. I can't be so clear in my business when I am so consumed with other things that are going on in my personal life. I did a post a few weeks back where I said, sometimes business is the easiest thing of my week. And I'll be honest with you, sometimes business is the easiest thing of my week. Why? Because I'm a human fucking being doing a human thing. And my business is very much my business. I have been doing it long enough to know what my strategy is. I've been doing it long enough to know that like there's going to be dumpster fire days. There is going to be problems. There is going to be hard conversations. There's going to be easy days. There's going to be great days. There are going to be high volume days. There are going to be low volume days. There's going to be great money days. There's going to be bad money days.
it's called fucking business, but that is sometimes the easiest thing as opposed to the personal shit that you're dealing with. So that is kind of what a week of my life as a coach looks like. That's what my clients are dealing with. There's just so much stuff. I mean, I could go on and on about all the things that I talk about with my clients. At the end of the day, mindset coach, confidence coach, business coach, scaling coach, life coach, whatever you want to call it. Those are the things that I talk about. Those are the things that I help my clients with. I'm honored to get to do this work. It is such a it's literally a blessing that I get to do this. So if working with a coach is something that you're interested in, I always tell you, you can find me on Instagram at @bchristina. You can check the show notes. You can send me a text message to 501-222-3362. Text me the word coach. We can go back and forth. You can always jump on a clarity call with me, a free, 100% free complimentary clarity call. By the end of that call, you will literally find out. I will help you get clear on the one strategy or the one mindset thing that could be keeping you stuck. I'll also tell you what it would look like to work with me. Right now, I have a couple of membership spots available. I may even throw in one more in-person VIP day this year. I know that is not for everyone, but I'm kind of obsessed with them because I'm obsessed with my clients. There is a wait list for my full-time one-on-one coaching at this point in time, but we can always discuss getting you on that list. You guys, I'm so grateful that you're here. Hopefully this podcast resonated with some of you. Hopefully you watch us over on YouTube. Slowly but surely, we're growing the YouTube, guys. We'll start at 1 view and, I'm not quitting anytime soon. So we'll get it up there. You guys, I appreciate you more than you could possibly know. Thank you so much for choosing to spend an hour of your day with me. Do not forget, at any moment in time, you have the power to decide it is your turn.